Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Fulcomer, the Vice President of Education, and we've got Constance Seiden, who's the Dean of Education for us. And we're going to go ahead and go through the presentation. Hopefully, we'll get through it in about 30 minutes or less, and then we'll have all the rest of the time for questions that you might have. So, without any further ado, we'll just go ahead and get started. Are you with me, Constance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll get it started. We're going to tag team between Constance and I tonight. We both have a little bit of a voice issue where we keep losing our voice for a little bit. So don't be surprised if we just jump back and forth every few slides and share the talking a little bit. But we'll make sure that we get through it okay. And like I said, have time at the end for some questions. So welcome to the presentation on the Heartland Institute of Financial Education and our college coaching program. Whoops, go too fast here. We'll get started with the whole thing. Is this you? It's time to get some help probably if you answer yes to any of those questions there. Do you have, or yes or no even on some of them, more yeses, I guess. Do you have a strategy to help your child find the best fit for college? Do you know how to choose the right major? Are you anxious about completing the FAFSA or the CSS? Are you worried about your child's education and the rising cost of tuition? And do you have a game plan for college? And will the high cost impact your retirement savings? You know, all of those are valid questions, and it's really hard to do it on your own and navigate through the system. It gets more complicated as well as more expensive every year. So it does make a big difference. And especially whenever nowadays, usually both parents are working and it just takes so much time if you don't have some professional help. Remember when they were little, things were easy. Now I know it's not inexpensive to raise a child, but it's even more expensive to put them through college. So now the time goes by so quick and they are ready to go on to college. You just don't have a whole lot of time. If you think about it, once they're freshmen in high school, it's only 720 days. That's really not much. And then a year later, it's 540. So it just keeps going by so quick. Some of the options after high school, sometimes a student will want to take what's called a gap year. It's basically a year where they're not in high school, but they haven't started college yet. Now, that can be good and bad depending on the student. Some of the advantages, if they use it properly, and that's the key, if they use it to do something very productive, if they do an internship or if they have some type of community involvement they're working on. Uh, One of our coaches had a student that had an opportunity to go do something in Africa for an entire year. So things like that can be very beneficial, and it can actually be a good thing to put on a college application after that gap year. The bad thing about a gap year is sometimes that gap year turns into 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, even 20 years. And then a lot of times people feel that it's too late to go on to college. It's never too late. So keep that in mind as well. But usually, if they go back after one gap year or 1 year of a break, then it's okay. The other options after high school, go straight into college. Let me try and figure out who that is and mute everybody. Okay, sorry about that. Uh, Once we're all done, if you do have questions, you can unmute yourself at that time. But while we're doing the presentation, Constance and I will do all the talking, please. Uh, the other options after high school is to go on straight to a university or a college and go from there. Some of the other options, an associate's degree, usually associated with a community college, but not always. Most of your four-year schools also offer associate degrees, so you can do that while you're still trying to figure out what the major is. Community college is a good option. Usually, our students that go to community college first end up doing very well once they're in college. So it works out okay. Not sure what's going on here, but we are getting a lot of background noise. Okay. Well, we'll try it again. Okay, maybe that'll keep the background noise out. Uh, Vocational and skilled trade schools. Now, a lot of those schools are accredited, so it's not a bad option, and it's really a good idea for many students. Many students do not want to go into an academic field. They don't want to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, nurse, or a teacher or something like that. A lot of them want to be, and they're best suited to be, plumbers, electricians, heavy equipment operators, heavy equipment technicians. There's a lot of very good professions and occupations that people can get into, and the outlook is very good. Now, our coaches will work with those students as well and help them find the right occupation. And I think probably Constance will be talking about our assessment that we do for students and everything a little bit later on, and you'll understand why it is important for that to be an option. Understanding some of the challenges. I think I jumped a few too many there. Let's see, there we go. Understanding the challenges. High school counselors, they do a heck of a good job in most cases, but they are heavily burdened with the number of students that they're assigned. On average, it's 478 students for each guidance counselor in high school. That's an awful lot of students to be responsible for. They just don't have enough hours in the day to meet with all the students that they probably should. Our coaches on average have about 66, 65, 67, somewhere in that range as far as the number of students that they're each responsible for. So the coaches have the time, but they also have the college experience. The high school counselors, their primary function is to get the kids through high school successfully. So in a lot of cases, what they're dealing with is they're working with students that aren't necessarily the best students, but trying to help those other students. And that's all good, but it doesn't help the good students and the ones that maybe need some help with getting into college. Beginning college freshmen are usually, in a lot of cases, undecided on what they really want to do on their major. 20 to 50%. There's no good number, but that's an estimate based on averages across the country. 75 to 80% of all students will change their major at least once, and many of them at least 3 times. The percent of bachelor's degree people who graduate with a bachelor's degree have changed their majors, 35%. Average time to get a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree, is actually 6.5 years. Average full cost of that extra year of college, average $22,800. That's a lot of extra money. So the average lost wages that the students give up because they're graduating late, $45,000. Now, if you add that all together, you think about, okay, 2 years you're paying over $45,000 instead of making $45,000. That's a net loss of $90,000 for that extra couple of years in college to get your degree. Not a good payoff. So our students usually graduate within about 4 to 4.5 years on average. Some of the costly mistakes that parents make, they think because they make $75,000 or own a home that they're not eligible for financial aid. That is definitely not true. That's a myth. They think that only minority students and athletes and the academically gifted students get financial aid. Another big myth. Not submitting a FAFSA. That's a mistake that they make based on number 1 and number 2, where they think they make too much money or that they wouldn't get any financial aid. Doesn't matter how much money people make or what they own. They need to fill out the FAFSA or the CSS or both, depending on what school they're applying to, because there is a lot of other aid there that is not needs-based. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So even though you make a lot of money, you can still get additional financial aid. There have been students that their parents make close to 7 figures and they still get financial aid. It's not needs-based, it's merit-based. The difference between includable and non-includable assets. Those are things that the coaches will talk about also when filling out the FAFSA and also applying for financial aid. applying to too few colleges because of tuition costs. They think, well, that school's too expensive. I don't need to apply for it. Well, sometimes those schools have the most financial aid available, even for students that have, their parents have a lot of assets. Sometimes they get the best money and the best package. So apply to where the student really wants to go and where they have the major that the student wants to get into. Also, mistakes they make are not knowing that many federal, state, and institutional scholarships and grants are available. There is so much money available, you just have to apply for it. If you apply for a lot, you should get some. So, and our coaches work with that very well and guide the students on how to do that. The rising cost of college tuition. Now, that's an estimate. We don't know exactly what it's going to do, but based on a 5% per year, inflate at 5% per year, it could go that high. Now, some years tuition goes up as much as 10%. And a lot of it is the private schools. They raise their tuition. There's no state guidelines or anything. They pretty much do what they want. The state institutions, they're controlled a little bit by the state, but as everybody cuts back, including state governments, less and less money is available for the schools. So the schools have to raise tuition in order to be competitive with the private institutes. Okay, who we are. The Heartland Institute of Financial Education is a national nonprofit, 501c3. So our goal is not to make money. Our goal is to cover the costs and help the students. And our primary goal, is to see anyone who wants to get an education to help them get a college education. And then what we provide is the college coach, and the college coach who works directly with students and the parents in order to make sure that everything goes as planned as much as possible. Now, when I say they work one-on-one, that doesn't mean in person. That's through email, online, and things like that. So you just have to keep that in mind on how it actually works. But our goal is to reduce the amount of out-of-pocket expenses that a parent might have. Okay, Constance, you want to take over for a minute?
Yeah. We, well, maybe. We, as coaches, we work with students in 3 main areas, all right? And in our program or not, students need to do this. First of all, we look at, we have them do assessment. We look at their interest and skills and what's important to them to have them get in, focused on the right career and in the right major. We then work with students on looking for the colleges to apply, figuring out which one's the best fit for them, and through the whole application process. And finally, we look at the financial aid. We work with scholarships, grants, working with FAFSA, the CSS profile, talking to colleges, financial aid packages. If a student finds an opportunity for a possible scholarship, in our opinion, they have to go for it. These are the main areas. First of all, student assessment. Students need to know what they're going to study when they go to college, all right? As you saw, a big problem is students changing their major all the time. And so many students do not make an intelligent decision on major. And by intelligent, I'm really saying an informed decision. So we start with an assessment. We look at interest, skills, and values. And then we have them explore careers, all right? That assessment will give us areas to look at and definite careers. And we'll look at work conditions.
You still there, Constance? Hello? Okay, I think Constance got lost there for a minute. Hopefully everyone else can hear, and we're still doing live. But I'm going to turn on, the chat line is on. So would someone please type in the chat line if you can still hear me? Okay, thanks, Jack. Appreciate that. Not sure what happened. Constance might have lost her internet connection for a minute there, but I'll go ahead and take over. Uh, the career exploration, the work conditions, and everything that she talked about, career guidance, looking to compare different careers, and finally college selection. And the reason I went pretty quick through those, we're going to get a little more in depth with those in just a couple of slides. Some of the values of student career assessments, career and aptitude assessment testing. There's three parts to the main assessment test that we use. The coaches have a lot of other tools available, different types of assessments from different areas. Different universities have their own little mini ones that specifically address a certain career possibly. But these three areas are the ones that we use right up front as soon as a student comes into our program. The career assessment, what are they interested in? What are their main interests in career clusters? And you'll see something in a minute that'll take that a little bit deeper. Skills confidence assessment helps a student understand what they believe they're good at doing. If they have the confidence, then they know that they can do better, or at least that's what indicates that they can do better. Their work values. What kind of work do they really like to do? Is it work with their hands? Is it strictly with their mind? So there's a lot of different things that the students need to consider when they're selecting a career. Okay, this is what I'm talking about here. Constance, you want to go ahead and take it if you're back on?
Yes. When we look at careers, there are 6 main areas. And within that area, there are a lot of different options. And so what we do, we're not going to do an assessment and say, oh, you will be an environmental engineer. The assessment will say, this is an area that may be of interest to you. These are items and these are careers you may want to consider looking at, all right? And so, say someone's interested in art, art is a huge area. And so what we do is we find a way to bring, students' talents, maybe passion, things like that, into a career that they also can get a job and make a decent income on. Now, here are the challenges. A lot of students do not have guidance, or they don't base their decision on information, or they listen to their friends. Okay, the worst scenario I encountered was a student who was going to become a physical therapist because his girlfriend told him it was a cool idea. All right, and everyone thought, oh, this is great, but no one asked him why. All right. If you have a student in school and they want to do something, ask them why. All right. Some students want to be a doctor their whole life. Well, think about medical field and all the changes that have happened over the past 10 years. There are so many opportunities that may not have been there before, and the student really should explore what they may be interested in. And again, we're going to look at what the work involves, what education is required, the salary outlook, and that important job outlook. You don't want to go to school for 4 years and not have a job when you get out. Now, when we look at jobs, this is kind of what we're looking at. All right, you have the task and conditions, the education. And I want you to notice here, salary outlook, okay? There can be a huge difference in salary depending on what area of the country you're going to be living in. And that's something you need to be aware of. And so if a student talks to their aunt in California and they say, oh, I do this job, I love it, I'm making all this money, the student, and say they live in Kentucky, they may not line up in terms of salary. And so students need to be aware, one, the information is out there, and two, use that when they're deciding their major. And that's what the coach will do. We help through that whole process. In engineering, all right, this shows a huge difference, electrical engineer and environmental engineer. And a lot of students would look at this and say, hey, in Texas, I can make 150,000. All right. Environmental, I can only get 141. I will go electrical. But you got to look at the job outlook. All right. Electrical engineering, they're only expecting a 1% increase in employment. For environmental, a 13%. And so you may make more money as an electrical engineer, but you may not get a job, you know? And so it's a combination of several factors that have to be looked at. And that is what students need to do. And what I mean by intelligent decision. Now, when it comes to colleges, I love talking to students. So many students will tell you where they're going to school before they know their major, all right? Think about that. They know where they're going to study, but they don't know what they're going to study. So how do they know that school is good for that major, all right? Here are a lot of the reasons we hear. It's close by, or, you know, in some cases it's far away. I had that with a student. Cheap, I can afford it. A lot of schools may offer a good financial aid package. This is the big one. It's where my friends are going. All right. I appreciate that. Friendship is big deal, and students will make new friends. All right. It's where a sibling went. Parents went. It's ranked very high as Ivy League. Just because a school has a high ranking does not mean it's the perfect school for a student. Just because it's Ivy League does not make it a perfect school for a student. The ranking is based on the criteria the group doing the ranking chose to base it on. And so ranks can vary depending on the group, all right? And a ranking for a school versus the ranking for a particular major may be very different. And you want to make sure that the school you're going to has a major and it's a good department at that school, all right? And so look at rankings, but don't get caught up on it. This is a real picture, all right? This is a picture of a kid figuring out where to go to school. That is reality. And you have that picture with majors. You have that picture with selecting a school. You have that picture with college applications. Our kids are under a lot of pressure. I mean, think about it. We're asking 17, 18-year-old to decide their future, all right, based on their experiences through high school. They need help. Here's an example of some of the things we look at, all right? The majors that are offered, this is with the school. We do look at the acceptance rate of schools to give us an idea of how competitive it is. You also need to look at retention rate and graduation rate, all right? Do students make it through that first year? We look at test scores and GPA. For the freshman profile, most schools publish a freshman profile each year for the incoming freshmen. How did that class, you know, average out on everything? That gives a student an idea, are they within the range that they have a good chance of being accepted to a school or not? You need to look at the financial aid. So many schools these days have a cost calculator, very helpful. And on the type of aids, it'll give you an idea what financial aid may be available, okay? Now, when it comes time to apply, all right? Occasionally we have students that only want to apply to Ivy League. We will support a student applying wherever they want. However, we want students go on and apply to the stretch schools. If you've had your heart set on Harvard or wherever, go on and apply. It's always good to dream and go for the dreams. We're also going to ask you 1 or 2 stretch schools, 2 or 3 great schools. These are schools that are excellent. They're a great fit for you. And you would like to go, and it'd be great for you to go, and you've got a good chance of being in. And we always ask for a safe school. A lot of families are thinking, why do I have to do a safe school? Once a student is accepted into a school, their choice, a safe school, wherever, their stress goes down. That's important. The last part we look at is financial aid, all right? FAFSA. Every student in school must fill out FAFSA, all right? I don't care how much money the family makes. I don't care on any of that. A student needs to fill out FAFSA. It's available October 1st. Some private schools will also require a CSS profile. It's kind of like a FAFSA, but it requires a lot more information. A lot of states have their own financial aid. I know there's Cal Grant, I believe Georgia Hope, different programs. We need to make sure we hit those. Scholarships, grants from individual colleges, the financial aid plan. And a lot of students may not realize it, but there are some schools, a lot of the schools' funding is based on first come, first serve. And so students who apply for early admissions have more opportunity to get the aid than some who wait for regular admissions. You have merit and economic scholarships. A lot of times, if a student gets multiple offers, we will assist them in writing an appeal letter, or if something has changed. For instance, if a student has 2 offers and they really want to go to the school with the lower offer, we'll ask to see if they can up the offer a little bit and the student go on and commit. All right, you need to be aware, and you need to know this. If you file an appeal, the student needs to have kept their grades up. All right, offers can be rescinded. And so we had a case, we appealed for more money, and the kid had totally let their GPA drop. All right, it wasn't good. And the last one is work study. I'm a huge fan. On the FAFSA, you need to say you want work study, and if a student can get it, they need to take it. And it's a way to make a little extra money. You work at the school, it's a part-time job, and in my mind, it's going to give you an opportunity to get relationships with some in your department, possibly. And working in your department and knowing people, that can lead to internships and things like that. Okay. Bottom line, there's a lot. You got it, Bob?
I'll take the next one. Your voice seems like it's fading a bit. Okay, $185 billion in financial aid every year, grants, scholarships, and loans. That's where we're at. And it's 2 types, as Constance mentioned earlier, merit-based and needs-based. And that's the big thing. The merit-based has nothing to do with how much money the parents make or what they own. It's based on the merit of that student. Again, keeping the grades up, doing the community service, the volunteer work, all that, internships, that all makes a difference when it comes to the merit-based awards. Others are our student results. Last year, over 2,300 essays reviewed. Last year, and again, these are last year's numbers totally, 225 students were accepted into the top 200 universities in the country. We had over $16 million awarded to those students in the program. We had an additional 184 on those appeal letters that she mentioned just a little bit ago. So that was $184,000 additional dollars on top of the initial offer. some get full ride scholarships, and it's not just to the students in need, it's to anybody. We've had students that didn't think they would get anything because their parents make 7 figures. Doesn't matter. They still can get a full ride. And not just to state schools. If you look at here, Duke University, UC Berkeley, New York University, Yale, University of Pennsylvania, University of Rochester, full ride scholarships that some of our students got. 97% of the CCP students were accepted into their school of choice. That's our CCP students. Now, when you look at that, it's not 100%. But some of our students at the end of their senior year, they may decide they want to go to the military, or they have a change in plans. They may want to, if they're from another country, they may want to go back to their country for a while. So a lot of reasons why it's not 100%, but it's still 97% is pretty good. Meet our coaches. Our coaches are all hand-picked. Most of them are people that Constance and I have worked with over our many, many years in education. On average, they have over 20 years of experience working in higher education, teaching, admissions, career advising, student services, you name it, we've got a coach that has probably worked in that area. Provide personal guidance. Now, every student is assigned one coach, but the way our coaches work, they work as a team. So it's when the student has one coach, they really have all the coaches with expertise in many, many areas. So it doesn't matter what area it is. If something comes up that's very, very unusual, unique, we'll have a coach that has worked in that area and can address those issues. So it's a whole team of coaches. 97% of our students are admitted to college. Our coaches know and understand the process. Steps in high school to increase options after graduation. So ideally, if we catch the students at the end of their 8th grade or 9th grade, that is the ideal time for them to come into the program. It gives the coach enough time to really work with them and understand them, get to know them, and really help them make the best decisions. But it's never too late for a student to come into our program and get our help. Excuse me. College admissions process, they'll work with the admissions process. They'll do the complete assessment and the analysis of those assessment results. They'll help with college applications. They give them guidance on any questions they have on how to fill out the applications. Excuse me. And then on college selection assistance, helping them make sure that it is the right school for them. Financial aid process and appeals. Again, Constance covered that pretty well. So I don't think we need to go any more there. Types of scholarships and grants and do the searches. They have many resources to give the students to go out and find additional money, scholarships, grants. And remember, that's all money that is not to be paid back. They don't have to pay that back. Student loans are the last option. Now, many students do have to take out student loans or parent loans, parent plus loans. That's okay, but there's different types of those loans. Some you have to pay interest right away. Some you can delay interest, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, but those are things that the coach would advise the parents on, even more so than the students, to make sure they take out the right type of loan. Do college for the right reason, the right college, and the right funding. And we did college right. This is some videos that we're not going to play here, but as consultants, you should have already seen these, or if you haven't, it's a good idea to go back and review these and let your parents and prospective students, let them take a look and listen to what some of our students have said. Here's some examples of some of the schools that were awarded schools where students went and some of the awards that they got. Carnegie Mellon, student got $183,000 worth of scholarships and grants to go there. St. Mary's College, $200,000. Parsons, $104,000. Johns Hopkins, $38,000. So it's not always in the hundreds of thousands, but again, it depends on the school and whether it's just for a year or for all 4 years. And then, do you qualify for the college coaching program? We do take most everybody, but we do have some guidelines. The student has to be committed to working with the coach, following the directions of the coach, and working closely with the coach. They have to be in at least the second semester of the 8th grade, or in high school, or a transfer student, or even adults that want to go into a professional program or that want to return to school. We'll help everybody that wants help. Where we will decline students and not accept them into the program, if the only reason they want to come into the program is strictly to get financial aid, we won't bring them in for that reason only. But our program, and you can see the enrollment fees here, $26.95 a year, $500 each additional year after that. If they follow our guidance, if you think about even if they only save one semester, so they graduate in 4 years instead of 4.5, what is a half a year's tuition that they save? 4 times, at least 4 times the cost of the program. So it's definitely a good investment. There's people out there that pay $7,000, $10,000, and I've even heard of people paying as much as $30,000 for coaching that doesn't even compare to what we do, because our coaches are really educators. They are not salespeople. Okay, discount through April. Just because you took the time to get on here and you want to help the students that you have, or possibly students that you're going to meet with, because you do that, from now until the end of April, we are letting you give a $100 discount to those students. Again, the enrollment has to be received by April 30th, and you use the promotion code SUCCEED. So when you submit the application and go through the payment process, put in the promo code SUCCEED, and it'll deduct $100 from the $26.95. Okay, and that's just our information. And at this point, we'll open it up for questions that you might have. Just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question, or you can put it in on the chat line and we'll take care of it from there. Any questions at all? Wow, the first group had lots of questions. You must be the quiet group ready for bed. Any questions at all? Comments?
You were very thorough in the second half. I guess that's why nobody has any questions.
I don't know. I think Constance and I did a pretty good job on the first one.
Yes, you did a pretty good job, but this second one is more organized, more focused.
Okay, well, thank you, Simbo.
Yes.
Anybody else have a question or a comment?
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So if you have a student who is actually in the going to attend the postgraduate program, are we still able to enroll them into our program?
If they need our help in selecting a school, selecting their major for that postgraduate program, anything that they need help with, we'll help them with. But again, if the only thing they want help with is finding financial aid, we will not bring them into the program. And the reason is we don't control financial aid directly. So we can't guarantee anything. And if they don't get financial aid, then they would get upset with us for not helping them. They would say we didn't help them. Now, I don't want to get into that because it always ends, when there's an issue like that, it always ends up on my desk. And I just don't like dealing with those problems because people change their mind later on. So if it's financial aid based as a reason, no, we won't work with them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Okay. Have a student who is currently enrolled in the program. Coach sent communication email at the beginning of every month. That's pretty much all the interaction with the coach. I would have to have more details specifically, but I would tend to say I don't agree with that because our coaches send at least 3 emails every month. The beginning of the month, they get an email with all the recommendations. A little bit later, they get another follow-up email wanting to know a little bit about, are you succeeding? Are you getting through those recommendations? And do you need any help? And then they'll get a third email following up again. And that's even if the student doesn't respond. Now, we try to get the students to respond to every email, but typically what happens, or not typically, but occasionally, you have a student that just doesn't respond. We can't control that. But I know the coaches very well. Constance knows the coaches very well, and we would disagree with that if I had specific names. And do not put it in the chat line. This is not for personal issues. But if you send Constance an email, or if you send us an email, we will investigate it and find out. Because every email from the coach or to the coach is recorded. So if you send me an email with the name of that student and the consultant's name and everything else, I can research that and find out if in fact there was only one email per month. Okay?
Bob, I put my email address down,
Okay.
and so you can just send me the information, and we'll check it out and get back to you. And we will be asking the coach to set up a meeting, most likely set up a meeting with the family.
Okay. Thanks, Constance. Other questions or comments? Still have a few to 15 minutes.
I have another question.
Sure.
I knew we got a lot of results with our program, but what do you think is the main reason why a student didn't get any offer for a scholarship that we enrolled in the program?
I don't think there is a main reason. There are several reasons why it could happen that a student doesn't get scholarships. One, they didn't ask for it. Two, they didn't have the coach review their FAFSA before they submitted it, or they didn't submit their essays to be reviewed before they submitted them while applying for the scholarship. It's usually, or they didn't apply to enough. If you only apply to 1 or 2 scholarships, the chances are you may not get anything. We recommend they apply for at least a couple every month. And they can start doing that real early. Granted, there's not an awful lot, an overabundance of scholarships for 8th graders, 9th graders, even the sophomores, but there are some, and they have opportunities to apply to those. Now, in some cases, a student could do everything right and still not get any money. We really can't control that. But I would say 99% of the time, if the student gets absolutely 0 in offers, it's something that they didn't follow the program guidelines.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Now, that doesn't mean the student is a bad student. It's young people in general. A lot of times they just procrastinate. They miss deadlines. And sometimes they're, well, quite honestly, they may be a little bit lazy. Other questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
In the communication process with the coach and the student, does the coach CC the parents?
Yes. Every email that the coach sends to the student, the parents and the consultant are copied on it.
Okay.
Now, I will say occasionally, sometimes the consultant may not get a copy of it because remember, it is the human factor, and sometimes they just miss the CC on the consultant. But 99.9% of the time, everybody involved gets a copy of the email.
Okay. Now, is the parent free to add some input every now and again if they feel they need to?
Absolutely. The parents, if they want to, they can send the coach an email. Now, I will caution on one thing. One thing that we don't want to happen is the parents doing the work and all of the communication for the student. Part of what our program is designed to do is to not only help the student be successful graduating high school and getting into the school and the career of their choice, but it's also to help them become mature young adults. And part of that is teaching them and helping them be responsible for their own actions and making sure that they are doing their own work. Every once in a while, we'll find that a parent actually, let's say, heavily assisted a student in writing an essay or doing something that the student should have done. Now, that doesn't help the student. You know, parents think it may be helping the student, but in reality, you're doing that student a disservice because you're doing it for them. Now, a good example of that, you know, all the media right now on the college scam with the rich people paying millions of dollars to help get their kids into the school of their choice and so forth. That's not helping the student. That's hurting the student. And if you look at all the feedback and everything, it's caused much more problems for the students than it did any good. And we won't let that happen if we can.
Excellent. To piggyback on that, I had invited somebody early on today, and his first reaction to me was, "Oh, is this one of the scams that's going on right now?" And I told him, "Oh no, this has nothing to do with that.
Absolutely.
Their own work."
Yeah. You know,
to be prepared for college.
Right. You know, years ago, someone came to me and said, your competition will guarantee a student gets accepted into Yale or Stanford or wherever they want to go. I said, really? They guarantee that? They said, yes. And I said, okay, well, how much do they charge? They said, well, it depends on the individual student, the family, and the school. But it could range anywhere from, you know, 100,000 to 800,000 or more. And it's exactly what we're talking about here. Now, they weren't doing it quite as illegally, at least I don't think they were, as some of the stuff that we're hearing about right now. But they could take 800,000 or $1 million from a parent, go to Stanford, for example, and make a donation to that school. Is it illegal? If not, it's definitely unethical. And then they make a mention of, well, this student has applied to your institution. Now, they don't ask for anything directly, but what do you think might happen if there's someone there that wants that donation bad enough? So we couldn't do that, especially on our fees. At $26.95, even if we could make that much of a donation to a school, they would laugh us right out of the office. But that is a good point. And I know there's a lot of scams out there, and they don't all cost millions. Even some of the programs that only charge, you know, a couple of $1,000s, some of them are still scams because they really don't give you the guidance that our coaches do. Our whole program is based on our coaches. They are the meat of the program. They really care about the students. That's why they do what they do. But thank you, Simba. That's a good point.
My pleasure.
How effective is the program, especially coach is online? Only one email? Well, again, it's not only one email per month. It isn't the fact that there are no phone calls. There can be phone calls. So minimum 3 emails a month. Parents can send emails and ask questions. Students sometimes send 5, 6. I've seen as many as 10 or more emails per month from the student, and the coach will answer every single one of them. Within 48 to 72 hours, they'll have an answer to every one of their questions. If they want to talk to the coach on the phone or have an online meeting, all they need to do is request it. Give the coach a little bit of leadway They can't say, hey, I'd like to talk to you in an hour and expect the coach to drop everything and do that. But definitely, if they do need a live conversation, so to speak, all they have to do is request it with the coach, and it'll happen.
I want to throw in 2 cents. I think if the parents and the consultants are copied on everything, and the coaches do send the multiple emails, and as a consultant or parent, you're checking the emails and you get an email from a coach saying, I haven't heard from you. Are you doing things? Please email me, things like that. Then we need you guys to talk to the kid. All right. We can email, I can send emails, but this is a team. It's the coach, it's the student, but the consultant parents also need to engage. If they see the kid isn't doing something, tell the kid to contact us, or let the coach know the student isn't engaged. Student will set up a phone call. All right, or the coach will set up a phone call. But I always, I always get concerned when I get an email saying, the student hasn't done anything. And it's like, well, if you know they haven't done anything, contact the family. Get involved too. This program is really a way for you to develop a relationship with the family. And I'm a firm believer, that it takes a village. I'm there. All right. Let's all work together to get these kids where they need to be. And if the coach isn't doing what they're supposed to, email me. We'll check, find out what's going on, and we'll get everything on track.
Okay, thanks, Constance. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Well, we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here, so if there are any final comments, now's your last chance before we end the meeting. Going once? Going twice?
I am just going to say that this is an excellent program, and we ought to be out there just letting people know that it exists. And I can say that because my own daughter is a senior and went through the program, and we finally got school admissions and everything, and it is such a relief when you get those acceptance letters and the money that comes in. It is such a relief, but during the process, it is extremely stressful. And
yes, it is.
And we need help. Every parent out there needs help. And I can't tell you how much it hurts me each time I hear when I talk to other parents and I ask about their children, and they say, oh, they'll just go to school and figure it out when they get into college. And I try to explain to them that that's not the way to go. Do you have money to burn? How can you have them just go to college and figure it out? For how long? 6 years, 10 years? And you'll be paying money all throughout that time? So we need to spread the word and let people know that there is a program that is available to help them to make this journey less expensive and actually more fun and enjoyable, because when the kid is empowered, then their self-esteem is boosted. They feel like they can conquer the world. They can go out there and make a difference. That's what we want our kids to do. They are our future. They need to be empowered, and that is our job.
Very good. Real good points.
Simba,
Thanks,
my
Simba.
friend. Simba, my friend, can you do me a favor? Can you tell everyone where your daughter is going to school?
She's
Got
going
accepted.
to Duke University. She's going to Duke, and she got a full ride scholarship.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, any final closing comments? If not, I want to say congratulations to you and your daughter, Simbo. That is great. And thanks to everyone for being on tonight. And look forward to seeing some of your names on some enrollment forms coming in to help some more students. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening and a great Easter weekend.
Thank you so much. You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Good night.